The doors of Buckingham Palace had seen family tension before, but according to this dramatic royal report, what happened inside one private meeting was so explosive that the room itself seemed to freeze. This was not just another disagreement over titles, duties, or palace protocol. This was a moment where grief, legacy, power, and jealousy allegedly collided in front of the most senior witnesses in the royal household. And at the center of it all stood three names: King Charles, Queen Camilla, and Catherine, Princess of Wales. Because according to this report, Camilla was not simply upset. She was allegedly removed from the meeting after Prince Edward, the Duke of Kent, revealed his late wife's final wishes that placed a major part of the Kent family's charitable legacy directly into Catherine's hands. Before we go deeper, if you enjoy powerful royal stories told with respect, detail, and real dramatic analysis, please take a second to subscribe. It truly helps the channel, and it means you will not miss the next update on this unfolding royal drama. Now, to understand why this moment reportedly became so intense, we have to begin with the room itself. This was not a public ceremony. There were no cheering crowds, no carefully staged smiles, no balcony appearance, and no soft palace music covering the tension. This was a serious royal meeting inside Buckingham Palace, where major decisions about patronages, family legacy, and future responsibility were being discussed behind closed doors. King Charles was reportedly presiding over the meeting, carrying the heavy burden that comes with being both a husband and a monarch. On one side, he had duty to the crown. On the other, he had deep personal loyalties inside his own family. Sitting near him was Queen Camilla, a woman who had spent decades fighting for public acceptance, royal legitimacy, and her place beside the king. Across from them was Prince Edward, the Duke of Kent, a senior royal figure connected to decades of quiet service, tradition, and family loyalty. And then there was Catherine, Princess of Wales, calm, composed, and silent, but impossible to ignore. Because whether anyone says it openly or not, Catherine represents the future image of the monarchy. That is what made the atmosphere dangerous before the first real blow was even delivered. According to the report, Prince Edward began by speaking about the Kent family's patronages, the charities, the arts organizations, the veteran causes, and the public service work built over many years. But then the meeting shifted. He reportedly made it clear that the majority of that legacy would not be handed to Camilla. It would go to Catherine. And that one sentence changed the temperature of the entire room. Catherine did not celebrate. She did not smile too widely. She did not act as if she had won something. According to the account, she accepted the responsibility with quiet respect, lowering her head and treating the moment as a sacred duty rather than a personal victory. But Camilla's reaction, as described in the report, was completely different. The report claims her face tightened, her posture changed, her hands grew tense, and in that silence, a deeper fear seemed to rise inside her, the fear of being overshadowed. Because for Camilla, this was not just about patronages, this was about influence. It was about visibility. It was about watching another woman, younger and more publicly beloved, receive a responsibility that carried emotional weight, historical value, and future power. And perhaps the most painful part for her, according to this account, was King Charles's silence. Camilla allegedly looked toward Charles, waiting for him to object, to slow the decision.
That's how you know this wasn't a business decision,
or at least to question
when
Edward's
Charles became
announcement.
king.
But
And
Charles
the moment
did
those
not stop
accounts
it.
landed at his
The
staff
report
and
suggests
said
he already
quietly,
knew.
"I will deal."
He had already accepted it. And that is the moment Camilla reportedly realized the decision had moved beyond argument. That silence was not hesitation. It was approval. Then the room changed. According to the dramatic account, Camilla rose from her chair with such force that the sound cut through the chamber. Every face turned toward her. Courtiers reportedly sat stunned. Charles looked troubled. Catherine remained still. And Prince Edward did not move. Camilla, according to the report, began challenging the decision directly. She questioned the fairness of it. She allegedly reminded the room of her years beside Charles, her service, her sacrifices, and her role as queen. To her, this was not simply a transfer of duties. It felt like a public message that
honestly,
her place was shrinking,
so did Camilla.
while Catherine
But here's where the
was
story
expanding.
gets much darker
And
than
that
Mrs.
is where the
Mother.
emotional
And
conflict
if you want to
becomes so
understand
powerful.
why
Because Camilla's
William
argument,
could do this,
as described by the report, was not without emotion. She had fought for her position for decades. She had endured criticism, scandal, judgment, and comparison. And now, in one formal meeting, she was allegedly watching one of the most symbolic royal legacies move past her and land in Catherine's hands. But Prince Edward's response was cold, calm, and devastating. He did not shout. He did not argue like a man trying to win a palace fight. According to the account, he simply made it clear that this was not about rewarding favorites. It was not about insulting Camilla. It was not about palace politics. It was about carrying out the final wishes of his late wife. That answer reportedly struck the room like a blade, because if the decision came from a final wish, then Camilla's objections suddenly looked different. It no longer sounded like a question of fairness. It sounded like a challenge to a deceased woman's legacy. But Edward was not finished. According to the report, he then brought up a painful memory, the funeral of the Duchess of Kent. He allegedly reminded the room that during a moment of mourning, when the Kent family needed support, Catherine had stepped forward with dignity and compassion. In this version of events, Catherine had shown up when it mattered, comforted the grieving family, and represented the kind of royal service that cannot be performed with titles alone. That detail reportedly wounded Camilla deeply, because the message was clear. This was not just about rank. It was about presence. It was about who appeared in a moment of grief. It was about who carried the burden when no cameras were needed and no applause was guaranteed. Catherine had earned trust through action. Camilla, according to this account, felt exposed. The report claims her expression changed from anger to shock. Her words slowed, her confidence weakened, and for a moment it seemed as if she had no answer. But then, Edward allegedly delivered the final proof. He reached into his jacket and brought out an old envelope, carefully preserved, deeply personal, and carrying the emotional weight of the entire room. Inside, according to the account, was a handwritten letter from the late Duchess of Kent. A final instruction, a final decision, a final act of trust. The letter reportedly made it clear that Catherine was the one chosen to carry the legacy forward. In that moment, Camilla's argument collapsed, because this was no longer speculation. It was no longer palace gossip. It was not a quiet arrangement made behind her back. According to the report, it was written, sealed, and witnessed. And when that letter appeared on the table, even King Charles reportedly acknowledged the weight of it. Camilla, as the account portrays it, could no longer hide her humiliation. The report claims she broke down in anger, not from sadness, but from the feeling of being stripped of influence in front of the very institution she had fought so long to stand within. She allegedly accused the decision of being a betrayal. She questioned Charles, and the room, once controlled by royal protocol, reportedly fell into a silence so tense that no one knew how to move. Charles tried to stop it. According to the report, he raised his hand several times, attempting to restore order without humiliating his wife further. But Camilla allegedly continued, pushing forward, her emotions overtaking the restraint expected in such a setting. And that is when the king reportedly made the decision nobody expected. Charles turned toward the guards. It was not dramatic shouting. It was not a public command. It was a silent royal signal. But according to the account, 2 guards stepped forward and moved toward Camilla, blocking her path and preparing to escort her from the meeting. The room reportedly held its breath, because this was not just any woman being asked to leave. This was the queen, the king's wife, the woman seated beside him in public, crowned beside him in history, and yet, according to this report, now being removed from a private royal meeting because the situation had gone too far. Camilla allegedly tried to resist the humiliation of the moment, but the decision had already been made. The guards escorted her out. The doors closed, and the sound of that door shutting became the most powerful symbol of the entire story. On one side of the door was Camilla's anger. On the other side was the future of the monarchy moving forward without her approval. After the removal, the room reportedly remained silent, Charles sat in the sovereign chair, visibly burdened by what had just happened. He was not just a king approving a transfer. He was a husband forced to choose the dignity of the institution over the emotions of his wife. And then, according to the report, he signed the document. That signature made the transfer official within the account. Catherine would become the custodian and public face of a major network of Kent family patronages, charitable causes, veteran support projects, and arts-related responsibilities. Camilla's protest had changed nothing. If anything, it had only made Catherine's quiet dignity appear even stronger by contrast. Then came the second emotional moment. Prince Edward reportedly stood and presented Catherine with a small, deep blue velvet box. Inside was a sapphire and diamond brooch connected to his late wife. It was not just jewelry. In the story, it was a symbol, a physical sign that the Kent family's trust, memory, and public service legacy had now been placed into Catherine's hands. Catherine accepted it with both hands. She did not treat it like a prize, she treated it like a promise. According to the report, she held the box close, understanding that this was not about personal glory. It was about continuing work that had taken decades to build. It was about honoring grief with service. It was about proving that she could carry more than a title, she could carry responsibility. And that is where the story shifts from palace drama to public consequence. Because after the meeting, Catherine reportedly did not retreat into celebration. She moved directly toward action. Meetings, planning, conversations with charities, preparation for veteran organizations, support for arts initiatives, a determination to show that Edward's trust had not been misplaced. That is the part of the story that gives Catherine power. Not the brooch, not the document, not the royal meeting. The power comes from action, from showing up, from proving that service is not a speech, it is a pattern. Meanwhile, the report paints a very different image of Camilla. After being removed from the meeting, she allegedly withdrew from public view, using rest and recovery as the explanation. But behind palace walls, the account suggests she was left with a deep sense of humiliation, resentment, and isolation. She had watched Catherine receive public trust. She had watched Charles allow it. And she had watched Prince Edward defend it with a letter that no emotional outburst could defeat. But she has not left the fight.